Hello grade 5s, I hope you're ready for another lesson today. Today we're going to be going through tense. Just like my other videos, this is made up of two parts. However, the first part is going to take us a little bit longer. So if you want to take the first part and divide it into two parts, I'm super happy with that. So tense you can do over 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday. And then the second thing, commenting on a text, the second section, you can do over 1 day. That's not going to take you too long. It's quite a nice activity. So I'm happy if you break the first part into 2 and then you can do the last part on Friday. I think it's a nice Friday activity. Before we start, I want you to please get your pen, your jotter or your workbook. Rule off after the last thing you did, which should have been your punctuation notes and activities. Write down today's date, and your heading for today is looking at tense. Once you've got that, we can move on. If you're still busy, just pause the video, get all of that down, and then we can get started for today. Alright, like I said, today we're looking at tense. Now in class, we've done loads of tense, but we haven't categorized them yet. So today we're actually going to start categorizing them. So if you're not sure what that means, it's okay, just follow along with me. Have a look at the slide. It says, tense indicates the time that an action or event is taking place. An event or action can either happen in the past, the present, or the future. Okay, so that's what tense tells us. When is it happening? The use of the verb is very important when looking at tense, as the verb is the thing that mostly changes the tense. So I swam, I am swimming, I was swimming. So you can see in 2 out of the 3 of those sentences, the verb changed, okay? There are many types of tense that you will learn in school: simple, continuous, and perfect. Those are the ones that you'll be doing in primary school. So today we're going to go over continuous and simple tense. We've done a lot of these in class, but we haven't really categorized them, so pay careful attention. Before we move on, I want you please to take this note down. It's not very long, so it shouldn't take you too long. Pause the video. You don't need to do a heading because you've already got your heading that you put beforehand. You can just take down these 3 points before moving on. Right, like I said, we're going to be going over simple and continuous tense today. We're going to look at the simple tense for past, present, and future, and the continuous tense for past, present, and future. Now, to help you see the difference, the way I'm going to do this lesson is I'm going to, for example, on the screen, it says past simple tense. The next slide is going to be past continuous tense, just so that you can see the differences between them, and then after each section, we'll do a small activity. And I'm hoping that this will help you better understand the work. So let's have a look. Past simple tense, here's your definition: to say what happened at some time in the past and is now finished. We often use verbs that end in ed or ied, and they also make use of irregular verbs. Remember, I told you in class, an irregular verb is a verb where a middle letter changes, or it doesn't change the same all the time. So it's not as simple as adding an ed or an ing. Those would be our irregular verbs, and I've given you an example there. For example, swim and swam. So those are irregular verbs because it's not as simple as just adding an ed or an ing. Okay, so this is what a past simple tense sentence will look like. I often take the subject, then I can add was or were, either one. So my example is, she was at work, they were friends. Those are 2 examples. Or like I said above, it can end in ed or ied. So I can have my subject and then my verb. He worked yesterday. Okay. For the negative, basically all you're doing is adding not. So she was not at work. I've taken the exact same examples from the top. And they were not friends, or he did not or didn't work yesterday. Remember, in the punctuation section that I sent you on Monday, depending on if you want to pronounce the word as did not or just didn't will depend on your apostrophe. So just be careful there. Right, more examples I've added there. I saw a butterfly. It happened already. I walked to the beach and found a nice place to swim. I had a burger and chips. I visited my sister while in Pretoria. All of those are simple past tense. One thing I want you to really take note of is what most of these verbs end in. They're irregular verbs, and most of them end in ed or ied. And have a look at the verbs that or the auxiliary verbs that they often use, was and were. That will help you a lot. Before moving on, I want you to pause the video and take this note down. Please take that heading, past simple tense, and as you write this down, just go over what I've said in my head about the verbs and the ending of the verbs, and that will really help. Then we'll move on to past continuous tense, and you'll see how they're actually different. Okay, now we are looking at past continuous tense. So just like I said, remember we've done these in class, but we haven't identified between them. So we've just done past simple tense. We looked at verbs. They're mostly irregular verbs. They end in ed and ied, and they explain an action that's happened in the past and now it's over. I saw my sister, it happened, and now it's done. I'm done seeing her. Okay, now let's look at how past continuous tense is different to that. So here's a definition. It's used to show actions that were happening in the past. It's usually used to show an action which was happening when another action, which is usually shorter, happened at the same time. If you're saying, oh my word, Mrs. Whiteman, what did you say? Don't worry, I'm going to show you in an example. In your example, in brackets there, I've included that they mostly use verbs ending in ing, and that's one of your big differences with simple and continuous tense. It's not the only difference, and it's not always a difference, but it's one of the main things you could use as a rule if you were not sure. Okay, so I was having dinner when Sarah called. So that's what I meant by your definition, where I said it is usually used to show an action that was happening when another action that is shorter was happening at the same time. So my action is I was having dinner, and then my other action that's happening at exactly the same time is Sarah calling. But I'm going to be quick on the phone with Sarah because I'm eating dinner. So eating dinner is going to be a longer action. So that's what that sentence was explaining. Number 2, they were walking along the beach when it started to rain. There's my other action. And number 3, while I was washing the dishes, I heard a loud noise. So there are some examples. You can see that just like in past simple, past continuous uses auxiliary verbs was and were. So that's how they're similar, but a lot of their verbs are different. So the way they form verbs are different. Okay, let's form this as a positive sentence. I have my subject plus was or were, and then I've got my verb ending in ing. Okay, she was cooking all morning. They were dancing all night. Okay, there I don't necessarily have another shorter action. I just wanted to show you a simple sentence where I've got my subject, was or were, and then a verb ending in ing. Then to change that in the negative, you just add not. She was not sleeping when they got home. They were not dancing all night. So you just add not when looking at the negative. Okay, I hope this is really beginning to make sense to you. I want you to pause the video and take this note down. Again, you will need the heading past continuous tense. Take the information down, and then you're going to do a quick activity for me where you distinguish between past simple and past continuous, just to make sure that you understand. So pause, take this down, and then you can move on. Alright, here's your past tense activity. Let's have a look at the instructions. Look at the sentence below and change their tense. If it is written in past simple tense, change it to past continuous tense. And if it's written in past continuous tense, change it to past simple tense. Okay, so you've got 4 sentences there. It's not a lot. You're obviously going to rewrite the correct sentence in your workbook. And please tell me what tense your sentence is. So your heading will be past tense activity, and then you're going to write the number 1. Don't write what I've put on the screen. You don't have to rewrite it. But I've given you a sentence there in past simple tense. So you are going to write past continuous tense, and then you give me the past continuous tense sentence. Okay, that's how it's going to work. So you don't have to write the sentences on the board. You're going to do the opposite tense for them. Not the opposite tense, but the different tense. So if it's simple tense, you're going to have it in continuous tense. And just write that tense for me, but let me know which one it is. Okay. So for number 1, again, in your books, you're going to write down past continuous tense and give me the past continuous tense sentence because I've given you the simple one there. I'll read them quickly with you, then I want you to pause the video and do them on your own. Number 1, I went to a Chinese restaurant yesterday. Number 2, past continuous. She called me in the morning while I was eating breakfast. Number 3, past simple tense. He went to the market. And number 4, past continuous tense. I flew to Sydney last month. I did put your verbs that you would probably need to change in bold so that you can give them very close attention. If you're not sure how to change from continuous to simple or simple to continuous, go back to your notes. That's why they're there. Okay, so pause the video, do the activity, and then we're going to move on. Okay, we have just gone through past simple and past continuous tense. Now I want us to go through present simple and present continuous tense. Okay, so let's have a look. For present simple tense, it's used when talking about things that don't change because they are in a routine or habit. So that there are things that we're doing all the time. Even if it's not an everyday thing, it might be a once a week thing. So here are some examples. If I want it to be in a positive sentence, I'm going to have a subject, and then I can use my auxiliary verb am, is, or are, either one, and then I've got my predicates. I did a lesson with you a while ago where we spoke about subject and predicate in a sentence. Remember, once I've got my subject, predicate is just the rest of the sentence. So when they say predicate, they're just saying whatever you're adding onto that. So let's have a look at the example. He is a good shopper. They are always late. So if we look back to our definition, it says talking about things that don't change because they're part of our habits. If he's a good shopper, next week he's not going to be a bad one. Okay, it's part of what he does and who he is. So we use it as a present simple tense sentence. He is a good shopper. They are always late. It tells me that it's almost their habit to be late. It's part of their routine. They never go anywhere on time. Let's have a look at another sentence structure. I can use my subject plus my verb, and then I add an object. They often swim in the pool. So my object would be the pool. Okay, or she is never at home, or I play tennis. The sentence she's never at home would actually form part of your negative sentences. So let's have a look again. They often swim in the pool. She is never at home, so she's hardly there, and I play tennis. It's probably something that I do quite often. Then, like I said, if you want to make those negative, you just add a not or did not, so it could be didn't. He is not at the shop. They are not late, or they are never late. They didn't swim in the pool, or they never swim in the pool. And then she is not at home, or she is never at home. You can use that word never quite often. Here are some more examples underneath. Have a look. I believe that you are incorrect. That's something I'm saying in the moment. Okay, so it is part of a present sentence. Our bus leaves at 9 a.m. That's happening now. That's when it's going to leave. And I won't go until it stops raining. So that's something I would say presently to you. So if we were at school and it started raining, then I would say to learners, don't go until it stops raining. That would be a present simple tense. Because it's in a present situation, and we've used that structure on top. We've got the subject, we've got our verb, and then we've got the rest of our sentence. I've attached some frequency adverbs for you, so have a look at the block that's going to pop up. I've underlined frequency adverbs. We did a lesson on different types of adverbs. We did adverbs of time, place, frequency. So here are some more examples. And they come before the main verb when I'm looking at present simple tense. So you can use words like hardly ever, seldomly, which means the same thing as hardly ever, and occasionally. All of those have the same meaning. Or you can use the words often, frequently, or always. These are just some ideas as well as the ones mentioned in your sentences. Okay, so before you move on, I want you to take the heading down, present simple tense. Again, whatever I put in color, you can do in color. Take the note down, and then we can move on. If you're still not sure, read through everything again, but when we go through present continuous, you'll see the big difference, okay? Okay, we've just done present simple. Let's have a look at present continuous and how they are different. So present continuous, the definition says, used to show an action which is happening at the time of speaking, but it will come to an end, okay? It's commonly used with time adverbs, so already we see a difference. When we looked at present continuous tense, we had frequency adverbs, and with present continuous tense, we've got time adverbs. So now, at the moment, today, this morning, this evening, or this afternoon, or in the afternoon, anything like that would be your time adverb. So here's some examples. Again, I've mentioned that you're using verbs that end in ing. So it's just, if you're not sure, you can use that as a reference, and most of the time you should be right. Okay, number one, I am having dinner at the moment. Eventually dinner is going to end, okay, but it's present, but like it says in the definition, the action will end eventually. Present continuous, right? Number two, John is working in Northcliffe. He's working now, but obviously he's eventually got to come home. He's not going to sleep at work. Then I am playing tennis. I obviously eventually stop playing tennis. Number 3, I used a very similar sentence with present simple tense. So for present simple tense, we use the word I play tennis. And for present continuous tense, we use the sentence I am playing tennis. So you can really see a difference with those verbs. So pay careful attention to that. If we look at a sentence structure, you would have your subject, and then you can use the auxiliary verbs am, is, or are. You can see I've used those in the sentences above. And then you've got your verb ending in ing. So he is running, they are laughing, I am watching. Your negative obviously would be adding not. He isn't running, they aren't laughing, I am not watching. Okay, so that's your present continuous tense. Again, you can see a very big difference with the verbs as well as the points of the sentence. So in present simple, we were saying that it's sentences that are more things that we do all the time or things that are part of our habits. And for present continuous tense, we're saying sentences where we know something's eventually going to end. And we know that because the sentence structure is kind of different. If you're struggling to really understand the concept, that's fine. I want you just to stick to those rules. Where I said, for example, in past simple tense, you're using verbs that end in ed or ied, or you're using irregular verbs. In past simple continuous tense, you'd be using verbs that end in ing. So just stick with the language rule if you're finding all the other things hard to follow. Okay. Before you move on with this activity for present tense, I want you to take the heading down, present continuous tense, take the small note down, and then we're going to move on. I know there's a lot of notes for today, but it's really going to help your learning, and this is work that you are going to do in grade 6 and 7, so it will really help you and get you on track, and your teachers will say, wow, you know so much. So pause, take the note down, and then you can move on. Okay, so we've just gone through present continuous tense and present simple tense. I want you to do an activity just to wrap up. Once you've done this activity, if you feel like you need to take a break, you can. Remember, I told you the 10 sections going to be quite long. So if you want to divide it up into 2 days, you can. If you are going to finish after this activity, once you do this activity, you decided, okay, you're done with English for the day, I would like you just to go over your notes, just revise your activities and check, just spend 10 minutes doing that before you finish up completely, okay? And then tomorrow you can come back and finish future simple, future continuous, and then I've got an activity to wrap up everything that we've learned, alright? So if you do want to take a break and not cram in too much in one day, you can after this activity. So let's have a look. Just roll the table below into your workbook and place the correct sentence in each column. So I've got one column that says present simple tense, I've got another column that says present continuous tense, and I've got 6 sentences at the bottom. So you're going to have 3 present simple tense sentences, and you have got 3 present continuous tense sentences. You need to decide which column those go into. So to do your activity, I first want you to draw the table. Then you can pause the video, or pause the video and draw the table, and then look carefully at your sentences and sort them out. You are more than welcome to look back at your note to assist you. Okay, so once you've done the activity, then you can read through your notes for today, and you can come back tomorrow to do the rest of the tense work and activities. Let's have a look. We are going to look at future tense now. So we're first going to go through future simple tense, and then we're going to go through future continuous tense. Right, so let's have a look. Again, I'm going to take you through the structure of positive sentences, and you can see what the sentences are made up of, and then we'll look at negatives where basically you're just adding the word not. Okay, so let's have a look with future simple tense. You've got 4 different sentence structures there. They're all quite similar. You're just looking at a lot of the time just different auxiliary verbs. So subject plus will, and then plus your verb. So I will go to school, I shall go to school. Okay. Then for your second one, I am plus going to plus the verb. So here with simple, this is why the ing doesn't always work, because I've got an auxiliary verb using going, which is an ing word. That's why I say you can't just say that continuous uses ing and simple does not. But if you're unsure, then use that as your rule, and most of the time you should be right. Okay. So here's your example. I'm going to go after they cut the cake. Another sentence structure would be he or she or it, if you're talking maybe about an object or an animal that you don't know whether it's a boy or girl animal, is, and then going to, and then your verb. He is going to Northgate tomorrow. I'm going to speak to you about the words that they bring up in future simple tense now. Then the next one, if I have a group, they or we, plus are, plus going to, plus your verb, they are going out for dinner tonight. Okay, or they are going to the movies. So that is your sentence structure for future simple tense. If you want it to be negative, you're just adding not. I will not go to school. I shall not go to the shops. I am not going to go after they cut the cake. I've just taken sentences from the top and made them negative sentences. Here are more examples if you're a little bit unsure about the sentence structure. Winter will come soon, so it's still having to come, it's in the future. She will go to high school next year. I am going to the shops. You'll see some of the words I've underlined. If I go from top to bottom, I've underlined after, tomorrow, tonight, soon, next year, and tomorrow again. So have a look at the block on the side of your page. Signal words that have been underlined are signal words for future simple tense. So other examples you can use are someday, this week, this month, this year, and next week, next month, or next year. So if I take one of my first sentences, if you go right to the top, where he will go to the shop, I can say he will go to the shop this week, or he will go to the shop next week. Those will make up your future tense. Again, the only place where I'm seeing an ing is where I've got going to, so keep that in mind because we don't want to get confused. So I'm just trying to help you find some rules here and there that can prevent you from getting confused. Now we're going to move on to future continuous tense, and you can see the difference between each of those and how they are different. Okay, we've just looked at future simple tense. Now we're looking at future continuous tense. Let's have a look at what the difference is. Here's the definition. It's used to show an action that will be happening at a time in the future. I will be having dinner at my parents' house tomorrow. So just like we saw with past continuous tense and present continuous tense will often give us more information. So that's another thing we can use to help find the difference. So here are some examples. Again, I've said they're verbs using ing. Remember I said that's not a rule that you can use 100%, but it will work most of the time. So let's have a look at some of those sentence examples. He will be having a shower, so take the house keys when you go out. So again, I'm adding more information. Number 2, when I arrive, everyone will be singing happy birthday. And number 3, they'll be coming to visit us next week. So let's have a look again at the sentence structures. The sentence structures, I want you to see how they're different to future simple, and this is why you're taking these notes down. So once you take the future continuous tense notes down, you can compare your sentence structures, which is under the heading positive, to the sentence structures of the simple tense and see how they differ with each other. Okay, so your first one, subject plus will plus be, so will be plus the verb ending in ing. I will be acting in the play tomorrow. Another one, I plus am going to, and then a verb ending in ing. I am going to the movies. I'm going to the movies at 5:30. I need a verb ending in ing as well. So here's another example. I am going to be swimming later on. Okay. Then another one, he or she or it, again like in future simple tense, is going to plus a verb ending in ing. So these are very simple to your future, similar, not simple. These are very similar to your future simple tense, where we have using going to, because we use the same sentence structure in future simple, but we did not use verbs ending in ing. So just make sure that you understand those small differences over there. Okay, plus a verb ending in ing. I'm on point 3 under positive. He is going to sleep when you get here. And then the last sentence structure, they or we or you, plus are going to. Remember, when we looked at future simple tense, we saw that it was they plus we plus are going to. Now when we look at future continuous tense, we've got they plus we or plus you are going to as well. So they're very similar in that respect. But the difference again, like I said, is that verb. So they've got the verb ending in ing for continuous, and for simple they don't. So make sure you know the difference. But also another big difference, like I said a while ago, was that your continuous often has more information or something else that's happening at the same time as something else. Okay, something else that's happening. Then with your negatives, again, you're just adding not. You can often use contractions here. I won't be acting in the play tomorrow. He isn't going to sleep when you get here. Okay, so before you move on to the activity, pause the video, take your heading down, future continuous tense. Anything I've done in color, you may do in color. Take your notes, and then we're going to do the activity to revise these two concepts. Okay, I want you to do a little bit of practice to revise your future simple tense and your future continuous tense. So let's have a look at your activity below. Look at the activity below and write the correct sentence into your workbook. It says there, future simple, be going to. So you're looking at the sentence structure. You're more than welcome to go back to your notes and look at that sentence structure. Complete the sentence or questions below with the correct form of be going to and the verb. So they're just saying that go look at your sentence structure. So we're working with future simple tense here. Go look at what your sentence structure should be and fill in the parts that are missing by making use of that structure. Okay, please pay attention that number 1 and number 5 are questions, so you need to start with the question word. I'll give you a clue for number 1. It's not a question word that we often use, and it starts with an A if you're unsure. Okay, I want you to go through those carefully, read them, and see what's missing. Again, it says future simple. So go to your future simple note, check at what your sentence structure should be, look at what they want you to fill in the brackets there, and complete those sentences. Okay, you'll have to maybe add in a verb or add in going to. That's the main thing that they're saying. Use the correct form of going to, and then you'll have the correct sentence. Okay, so you're going to do all 5 of those in your workbook. Please write all of them down, the whole sentence, not just the section that's on the line. All right, and then for the next part, I've just got 3 more sentences there for you. It says future simple tense or future continuous tense. You only need to write the answer and not the sentence. So when you do this activity, you can just write future tense activity. You can do number 1 to 5, those sentences, and then you can just skip a line and do number 1 to 3, and you can just write down future simple tense as your answer or future continuous tense as your answer. If you're unsure, or even if you are sure, just go back to your notes, double check, triple check, make sure you understand, and then put your answer in. All right, finish this, and then we're going to end off the tense section with an activity where I'm going to quickly get you to practice all the tense we've gone through, and then we're done with tense, okay, for this week. Good job. Okay, to conclude, I want to show you the difference between simple and continuous tense. Okay, this is the last bit of practice you're going to do for your tense section, and then we're finished, which means that when we're done with this, you can take a break for today, because the other work you can do tomorrow on Friday if you like. Okay, so let's have a look at what you need to do. See if you can tell the difference. Rewrite the sentences below, which means you're rewriting the whole sentence. Please just not the answers. Rewrite the sentence below and write whether they are written in continuous tense or simple tense. Look back at your notes if you need help. So I've told you the tense that these sentences are in, for example, past, present, or future, but you need to tell me whether it is simple or continuous. And the reason I'm making you write out these sentences again is because as you write them, you become aware of your auxiliary verbs and your doing verbs that you are using, as well as the structure of the sentence, and that will help remind your brain what the difference is when looking at simple tense and continuous tense. Okay, so you're going to rewrite the whole sentence, and then at the end of the sentence, you'll see I've either said past, present, or future, and then I've left a line. You're going to write the sentence, then you write down whatever I wrote down, past, present, or future, and then you're going to add whether it's continuous or simple. You can put that bit in color if you like. Please go back to your notes if you need to. Don't just rush to get this done. Go back and check. Like I said, this is not just work you're doing in grade 5. You're going to do it for a very long time, so it's very important for you to understand. And then once you're done, you can take a breath and have a break. Okay. Okay, you are done with tense, so take a break if you need to. Tomorrow, I want you to come back. We are going to do a very short lesson on responding to a text where you are going to read something interesting and do something new for me that you haven't done before with the text. So I'm quite excited for you to do something new and also to see your work. So take a breath, rule off after today's work. Please make sure you've got everything down. Move on to your other work or relax like my panda over there. See you tomorrow. Okay, today we're doing an activity where you're going to read a really short paragraph. I'm not going to call it a story, it's not really a story. And then you're going to do an activity where you comment on it and give me some ideas from that text. So it's not really like a comprehension, but you are getting information from the text. You're just going to do it in a different way that you haven't done before. So I'm quite excited to show you that. You should have ruled off after your tense work. If you haven't, please rule off now. Put today's date. Your heading is commenting on text, and then we can move on. Remember, this can either be done in your workbook or Jota, whichever one you have. So pause the video, take down your date and today's heading, commenting on text. This should be after your tense work that you did for me yesterday and on Wednesday. Rule off, and then we can continue for today. So rule off, date and heading, and let's move on. Okay, here's what you're going to do today. Read and compare the character traits. Read about the two characters on the next slide. Pay careful attention to their external, so it would be their looks, how they look, and their internal, what would be their personality or character traits. And then you're going to compare them using a double bubble map. This will be shown to you. So if you say, oh my word, what is that? I will show you exactly what it looks like, and I think it's a really nice way for you to sort out your work. So again, you are going to read through the two character traits on the next slide. Pay careful attention to their external, which is their looks, their internal, which is their personality traits, and then you're going to compare them using a double bubble map. So first you're going to read and then do the activity in your workbooks. You don't need to take this down. This is just telling you what you need to do. Okay, I haven't put a video of myself here because you are going to read this on your own. So what I want you to do is pause the video, read the two character sketches, and then you're going to do the activity. Obviously, you can see which character is which. It tells you their name and so on. So read very carefully. Pause the video. I would recommend for you to read it twice before moving on. Okay, good luck and read carefully. Now that you've read your character sketches, I'm going to show you what a double bubble map looks like. So here it is. Your double bubble map is for your characters that you've just read about. So I've got their names in the big bubbles in the middle there, Sasha and Anil. Both of them, you'll see that they get their own bubbles, and then they get bubbles that they share. So on the outer sides of each of their bubbles, on top there's a little heading that says differences, and in the middle of both of their names, where there's three bubbles, it says similarities. So that already tells you how it works. On the outer three bubbles, you're going to put differences. They should each have three differences. There should be things that Sasha likes or looks like or does that Anil doesn't, okay? And then they should have three similarities. If you're thinking, oh, but I only saw two similarities, go back and read the story again, or read the character traits again, sorry, because there's definitely at least three differences for each of them and three similarities between them. So let's have a look at instructions, and then you can start. Draw this map in your workbook. You may use 10 to 15 lines, please not more. I recommend that you count now 15 lines and then take a pencil line with your ruler and rule off so that you know where 15 is and you don't go over that. If you want to turn your page to the side, instead of portrait you want to do landscape, you're more than welcome to, because it's a double bubble map. It might be easier to do that. And then you fill in the map based on what you've read. You must list three differences for each character and three similarities that they share. Your map in your book should look exactly the same as the one I've put here for you. Obviously, the one in your book is going to have information and this one doesn't. That's the only difference. If you're not sure how to fill this out yet, it's fine. Go back to your story and have a look, and then you can fill it in. I know that you've just read the story and you didn't take down any points. So what I do recommend is that you draw your double bubble, you add in the two characters' names, then go back to the story, pause the video and fill it in like that once you've got it down, because that's going to be a bit easier. Okay, good luck, work hard, and I really hope that you like this activity. Okay, and this is the second and last activity for the day. I did tell you that this section was going to be a lot quicker than your 10 section. So it's literally doing the character sketch, and now this activity, which is my own comparison sentences. Now, you know, comparison is when I compare things, just like we did now with the double bubble map. We compare two characters. So let's have a look at what you're going to do. Here's your worksheet. It says language frames, compare and contrast. You are going to use the language frames to help create comparative sentences between two nouns. So by language frames, they mean the sentences that have been put there for you. I've kind of given you the skeleton of the sentence. I want you to fill it in and make those sentences exciting. So here's just things to keep in mind in order for you to do well. Have a look at the box on your page here. Rewrite these sentences by filling in your own nouns. Work slowly and have fun with it. Your sentences must make sense. You know I like silly sentences. I'm happy with silly sentences, but they have to make sense because we're comparing. You can't compare things that are super, super unalike, like water and fire, because I've got no similarities. So you have to make sure that if it's a difference, I can compare something like ice and fire, but if it's a similarity, I might need to compare things that are more similar to each other. So A, you've got sentence frames, something and something both have. You can choose whatever you like. Animals or objects. An example that I'm going to use that you and I can't use because I've already said it. Because I've got a picture of a dog and a cat there, I can say dogs and cats both have fur. Okay, so you can compare any type of animal or object you like. Number 2, something and something are alike because they have. That's very similar to your first sentence. I'm just adding in more words to make your sentence more interesting. Number 3, something and something are different because, tell me what's different. The one has a tail and the one doesn't, or the one has scales and the one has fur, anything like that. Animals would be quite easy to use with this, and quite fun as well because you can think of quite a few. Number 4, even though something and something are a certain thing, you can maybe go back to number 1. So I'd say, even though cats and dogs are furry, they differ because, and then I can say something that I find different about them. I take my dog on a walk, but not my cat. Okay, so you can work with those. I hope you can see what you should be doing with this activity and what I'm expecting of you. I want you to go through the rest on your own. Be creative, think very carefully, and have fun with it. I think it's quite a nice activity to end the week, and I hope you've had fun this week. When you are done, you can wall off and have a break for today. Please make sure that you did your tenses on Wednesday and Thursday, and this was your activity for Friday, that you did your character analysis and now comparing sentences. I hope you've had a good week of learning, and I will see you next week.